Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Recently, one of our fans, Hunter, sent us a question asking us, what if Palpatine is actually possessed by Plagueis? We know that the Sith were capable of possessing one another. In both legends and canon, we see numerous examples of this type of behavior. Which actually leads me to the larger question, could the rule of two actually have created a line of Sith possession? Which means that when Palpatine claims to be all of the Sith, that he literally means that he is all of the Sith. If you guys have a good question like Hunter's, please like us on Facebook and send us a message with your idea. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome YouTube content. When Rey confronts the resurrected Darth Sidious during the Battle of Exegol, the Sith Lord has a very clear goal. He wants Rey to strike him down in anger so that he can possess her young, supple, and force-rich body.
Kill me, and my spirit will pass into you, as all the Sith live in me.
This was always his plan, and not that different from the Legends version of what actually happened to Palpatine. What Palpatine did was he cloned the father of Rey for the direct purpose of taking over his body. But when it turned out that Rey's dad was not force sensitive, Palpatine kind of just released them into the wild and hoped that he would make more offspring who would become force sensitive, and this of course worked. Which is where Rey comes in. She's clearly very powerful, maybe too powerful, and so her purpose unfortunately has always been to be the vessel for her very creepy and rotting grandpapa. I know that really isn't cool and stuff, but ethically speaking, we haven't really figured out the morality around cloning yet. What does this tell us about the Sith? Well, it seems like their trick for immortality involves being killed by another person. If you take a look at the original trilogy, this is the type of behavior that Palpatine was always trying to pull off. For instance, when he confronts Luke Skywalker for the first time, he says the following:
I am defenseless. Strike me down with all of your hatred.
I mean, was Palpatine trying to goad Luke Skywalker into falling to the dark side, or was he actually trying to possess his body? Which makes me also wonder about the Mace Windu and Palpatine scene. Could Palpatine have hedged his bets in this situation as well? If Anakin doesn't help him out and Mace Windu does kill him here, would he have just possessed the Jedi Master? Probably would have been more difficult to possess Mace Windu because he was a master of Apad, which allowed him to use dark side energy without being corrupted by it. Anyway, to better understand how the Sith possession works, we have to take a deeper look at what is going on in the Force when someone carries out a ritual like this. Okay, so let's do a refresher on Star Wars biology, death, and midichlorians. In Star Wars, death comes when the body is no longer physically able to sustain life, like when they lose too much blood, or they lose an important part of their body, or of course they lose the will to live. But the real moment of death comes when the consciousness leaves the body, and a person's consciousness is actually tied directly to the midichlorians. Every living thing in the galaxy has midichlorians, even dolphins. These are essentially microscopic beings that are conduits between the Force and an individual's consciousness. When a person dies, the midichlorians also leave the body and return to the cosmic force, and the consciousness sort of just fades away. The Jedi figure out how to preserve their consciousness by aligning themselves with the Force and becoming one with it. Light side philosophy has always been about unity with the Force, and as we see in Yoda's own pursuit of immortality, only after passing several trials that tested Yoda's character and control over himself could he begin the process of becoming one with the Force. The Sith philosophy has always been the complete opposite. Their goal was not to be one with the Force, instead they wanted to dominate the Force and of course the midichlorians. In ancient times, the Jedi and Sith alchemists would create powerful twisted life forms and monsters from the Force itself. They could even create living flesh from the Force itself that could be used to patch wounds in the body. Now, a lot of this information was lost due to continuous conflict and warfare between the Jedi and the Sith. But in more recent times, Darth Plagueis experimented on a Force-sensitive subject and was able to bring that individual back to life multiple times after killing him. And so he basically unlocks the secrets of immortality, but in a bit of a different way.
Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
So Palpatine learns about this ability, how to keep another person alive. Darth Plagueis' plan had been for the two of them to keep each other alive by using this method, which was actually quite naive considering the usual end result of the Rule of Two method. When Palpatine kills Plagueis, he decides to go another route in his own pursuit of immortality. Whereas the Jedi kept their consciousness intact by blending in with the cosmic force, the Sith also had a way to keep their consciousness alive through pure hatred and rage. The problem was when a Sith Lord becomes detached from a body for a long period of time, they would become mad and fall into chaos. Chaos is otherwise known as Hell, or as the Corellians called it, the Void. This was kind of a netherworld in which dark side spirits would just kind of wander around for eternity. It's a terrible place to be. Now, the most powerful Sith Lord to ever exist, Vitiate, was powerful enough to maintain his sanity while in the spirit form. He also lived for thousands of years through possessing multiple individuals. And that's basically how most Sith Lords cheated death. They would just possess other people or other objects. The problem with possession of another person is that the Sith spirit will need to overcome the consciousness of the individual already residing in that body. This was a relatively hard thing to do, especially if that individual had a very strong will. This is why usually when Sith Lords possessed another body, they used clones, which is exactly what Palpatine does. This method is pretty aggressive and brutal and goes against the laws of nature and the Force, and so when a Sith Lord possesses a body, it usually begins to decay very quickly. Basically, this process was very difficult to pull off, so, most Sith Lords just relied on possessing like objects, tombs, amulets, stuff like that. One of the earliest Sith Lords to use this transfer essence ability was Carnus Mur. He would bind his spirit to a talisman so that any individual who wore that talisman would then become possessed by him. Now, Palpatine's Sith line would begin during the Rule of Two era. Darth Bane would see to the end of the Sith Empire by tricking the remaining Sith in the galaxy to use the Thought Bomb during the 7th Battle of Ruusan. This would leave Darth Bane as the sole Sith Lord in the galaxy. He would then take on an apprentice known as Darth Zena, and he would teach her the Rule of Two philosophy. One master would teach the apprentice until the apprentice is strong enough to defeat the master, and then that new master would find another apprentice, and so on. There could only be two Sith at a time. This was to make sure that when the Sith fought, it would always be one-on-one and only the strongest would survive. This whole system was actually really flawed because every Sith master didn't want to die. They didn't want to just step aside and let their apprentice take over, and this included Darth Bane. When Darth Zena finally tries to take down Darth Bane, he releases his essence from his body and attempts to invade his apprentice's body and destroy her consciousness. Darth Bane would lose this contest against Darth Zena, and his body would turn to ash and his consciousness would be repelled. But it's stated that a small portion of Bane's consciousness would still reside in Zena's body. The Rule of Two system would go on for hundreds of years, and by 67 BB1, the two Sith in the galaxy were Darth Tenebris and Darth Plagueis. Tenebris is killed by Plagueis while they are inspecting a cortosis mine. Darth Tenebris had transferred his consciousness into modified midichlorians he called maxichlorians. He did this by introducing a retrovirus into his body that altered the midichlorians so that they can live a lot longer and also contain his consciousness. And so when Tenebris is killed by Darth Plagueis, Tenebris's consciousness actually goes into Plagueis' body through a wound in his side. Tenebris's consciousness would witness Plagueis' death at the hands of his own apprentice, which caused him to flee Plagueis' body. Even so, a portion of Tenebris's consciousness would remain in Plagueis' body, just like Darth Bane's consciousness would remain in Darth Zena, continuing this line of transference of energy and essence from one Sith to another. Finally, when Darth Plagueis was killed by Darth Sidious, it's very likely that Plagueis was also able to possess Sidious. Palpatine recalls experiencing a sensation of sadness and great loss when he kills Plagueis, and he would continue to fear the return of his master in the form of a vengeful spirit. So when Darth Bane created this Rule of Two, he created this environment where an apprentice will always have to kill the master, and it seems like the master in almost every situation that we know of has the ability to at least possess another being when they are struck down. This could be the secret to why Darth Sidious is so powerful and has so much knowledge. Well, let me know in the comment section below what you think about our theory. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.